Well, hey, welcome to the Faith, Relationship, and Community podcast, where we talk all things faith, relationships, and communities. And so my name is Noah. I'm the lead pastor of Morningside Lutheran Church. And with me, I have Paul Rhodes. And not to be confused, I think I told you this, the former Iowa State head coach. It was Paul Rhodes. And when I first heard you, I thought, oh, he got into a good field. But Paul is with Youth for Christ. So we're going to talk about Youth for Christ, what that ministry is and what you guys do. But first, thanks for being here. I appreciate you chatting.
You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah.
This will be great.
So we'll start a little bit about yourself. You're not from around here originally. You're from down south.
No, I'm from down south.
Yeah.
So I grew up really in Alabama and Georgia and Mississippi, and eventually made my way to Louisville, Kentucky. Spent about 20 years there, and just over the last 4 years came here.
Yeah.
So
you have a pretty good accent for being here for not as long, your whole life. And so you have to build that in a little bit, practice it.
Not really. What's interesting is as a kid, I had a lot of speech therapy stuff.
Okay.
And so they taught me how to properly speak. Even in the South,
Midwestern,
and it just kind of played around, played over correctly. So,
oh, that's funny. Yeah, that's
it
cool.
is.
Yeah, and so you were at Central Baptist for a little while,
correct?
And you've been with Youth for Christ for how long now?
About 6 months.
About 6 months.
So,
okay,
yeah.
Cool. Been quite a journey.
Yeah, it has been. So it's a very interesting journey. So.
Yeah, it is, and already in that time, I'm sure you've just seen a lot of impact, and obviously. You and I had a chance to talk about where you guys kind of want to go with all of it. And you're in different territories and schools and areas of the community. Talk a little bit about what is Youth for Christ.
Okay, so Youth for Christ, we really focus on kids who are the underdogs and their relationship and bringing them into relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about stories and about their story and our story, and then how God's story impacts that. Yeah. And so we do that in several different contexts. One would be JJM, which is Juvenile Justice Ministries. And we are in, for example, I'm in juvenile detention every single week. And so we interact, and we also have chaplain at during juvenile detention as well.
Okay.
And so every single week we do that.
Detention?
It's actually where everybody gets their tags. So here in Sioux City. So it's up on the upper floor and so forth. So
okay, very good.
But we are also in the school system and interacting with schools. And then also as well in our youth teen center, which is called City Life. Which is downstairs downtown at 18th in Nebraska. Yeah,
in City Life, that was cool. When I was there last time, we got to see your layout and everything. Talk about that, what City Life is and what you guys do.
So we're a teen center, and so on Tuesdays and Thursdays right now from 3:30 until 6, we do programming. Basically, we hang out for the first hour, an hour and 15 minutes, and then we have dinner together, family style, where we all get around the table and share relationships, share life together. And then after that, we break up into small groups and have a brief lesson and a testimony time. Yeah. And so, which is an amazing time to get to know kids and really get perspective from their lives.
Sure.
We're not just about teaching them about Christ. We're about entering into their lives and walking alongside of them and really encouraging them and championing them in many ways.
Yeah. I remember that was one thing that we talked a lot about is relationships. And obviously that's one of our visions, just building strong relationships because those are so important. And you guys have a huge emphasis on that, knowing that like that's where it begins. And so a lot of times when you're bringing people in, especially City Life and those that are out in the field in the schools, it's about that connection point. And so you teach a lot about that. But when we were out there at City Life and looking at your scope of there, some kids just come and eat. And that's the extent of your access to them.
Yep. That's exactly right. And so we don't put a whole lot of rules and regulations about who can be involved or when they can be involved. They can come in and leave pretty much when they're allowed to or by their parents, They still follow those directions, obviously. But the reality is they can come in, they can hang out and play pool. They can hang out, play basketball with us, really anything to create a relationship and get to know them.
Yeah. What was just behind Youth for Christ, just their existence and seeing this need and why this is important in our community?
Well, actually, Youth for Christ has been around for a while.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is Billy Graham was one of the first executive directors or leaders of Youth for Christ.
Amazing.
Really before he even started his own ministries. And so it was interesting how that is. That's how Youth for Christ got started, was with campaigns. They would go from city to city and have large speaking events and really minister to kids. And the more that we got involved and the more over the years, we've noticed just the reality is that students need relationships.
Yeah.
And so that we've kind of geared ourselves to have that, to be where they are at on their locations.
Yeah.
So
we had, I think I shared this with you, community leaders come a couple years ago now, police officers, fire department, educators, principals. And one of the greatest needs they were saying in the community is mentorship. Yeah. And so that's what really appealed to us to just lean into. And I think I told you in that meeting, Youth for Christ was brought up a few times, which is doing a really good job of that. And I've been intrigued by that, but also you guys have a foot in the door just in a relationship with the schools. And I think that's so neat. So talk about that relationship and how that's kind of a big deal. Because I mean, not everybody can go into schools right now.
Yeah, it's been a great opportunity. And mainly that's because we've been around for about 30 years, a little over 30 years involved in the schools. Yeah. And so it has given us the opportunity over the years to just have deep bonds and relationships with people within the school. And what's very interesting is, so we're Youth for Christ. We focus mainly on youth, but the reality is we minister to a whole lot more adults than that. I mean, to teachers, to principals, to administrators, just to everyday people, parents, JCOs, which juvenile court officers, that whole system, we minister to people that are involved in that and in those nonprofits.
That's important. And we talked too about just parents in general. I mean, what are some of the scenarios of course, you're not using names or anything, but some of the scenarios of just the lifestyle of kids that you're bringing in and serving?
Yeah. When you said that, I thought of a kid that I'm pretty close to. He actually got to know me. It was kind of a weird thing. Got to know me at the park. We were doing just hanging out at Leaf Park to interact with students and just get to know them. And over a period of 2 or 3 years now, I've done different things for him. And so every single time, there are times when he sleeps in late for school, and I get that phone call almost every time. Hey, Paul, can you take me to school? I'm late.
Oh, yeah.
And so what's interesting about his household, I mean, his mom really loves him and cares for him, but she's not there in the morning because she's off working already. And so when he gets up, he kind of has to do his own thing. He's got to get himself ready and make sure he's up and out the door. Yeah. And when that doesn't happen, a lot of those kids just decide, hey, I'm done for the day. I don't have to do anything.
Yeah, sure.
But the reality is it's really cool because over the course of that relationship, he's begun to care about whether or not he's there or not at school. Yeah. And so it's just been great to watch that transformation.
And you get to see that transformation.
And I do over time. And it takes a long time. I mean, it's not a quick and easy, 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. It takes some investment.
You told me a story one time about a kid that wanted nothing to do with you. Do you remember that? I think at a lunchtime or you went into school.
Yes.
What was that?
So actually what happened there was, we were sitting there and I knew one of the kids at the table. So we were just talking, striking up a conversation. And this friend was like, well, who are you and why are you sitting here? Kind of giving me that look and that feel. And, it was just great. But just as soon as I said what I did, he scooted his chair 15 foot away.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just a unique reaction. And I was like, well, have I already offended you? What's going on here? And he said, no, I don't have anything to do with religious people. I don't have anything to do with that. I'm a Satanist. And I'm like, oh, a Satanist. Okay, well, let's unpack that a little bit. So I was like, hey, well, just tell me a little bit about what you believe in. I understand that. And his was a shape shadow type of thing. It was a different type of Satanism. It's interesting to watch the different forms of Satanism that are out there.
Sure, culturally too, so, in different generations. Yeah. So he shared that with you at least.
Yeah, and which was good. And eventually he moved his chair back. I was like, hey, I haven't gone into that conversation. Yeah. I'm not headed that direction right now with you. I just want to get to know you. I want to get to know everybody at the table. And so it's interesting, back 3 or 4 months later after that, he came to me and said, "Hey, Paul, can you help me with this?" And so I thought that was a great opportunity. It's like, okay, I've made at least an impact enough that he can rely upon me and he can ask me for things.
That's what's so important about that relational aspect, because you come in right away. I think about that in Luke chapter 10, where Jesus sends his disciples out, and now they are to eat with them, drink with them, kind of figure out their felt needs, and then preach the gospel and share that message. And so I think Jesus is very intentional about how we do that. You weren't forceful with that, but engaging in that relationship, and that's so important, especially with students. Yeah,
that's what we find. I mean, the reality is that sharing life with them becomes as important as what we say. I mean, we all have that experience in life of, somebody makes an impact upon our lives, but if we go back and say, "Hey, what did you learn from them?" Yeah. And it's like, well, I don't know what I learned from them, but they made a big impact upon my life. It's not that they didn't learn anything. The reality is they did, but the relationship is what mattered. They know you. You walked alongside of them. Yeah. You invested in their life. And so that's what becomes important.
Yeah. You see a really great need for that in our community?
Yes, we do. So in fact, I mean, every week as I go into juvenile detention and hear the stories about students who have grown up in tough situations or are in tough situations because of their choices. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing how many don't have somebody they can really rely upon and trust. Yeah. The parents are there at times, but a lot of times kids, it's kind of interesting. Kids go up to about 12 years old, right? And they listen to their parents, follow them, and try to obey and those type of things. And of course, just as soon as they start the rebellious years of teenagerhood, what happens there is they kind of know their parents. They know what their parents are going to say, and so they start seeking other people to invest in their lives and just sort of fact check parents, if that makes sense. Yeah. And oftentimes they find out, "Oh, mom and dad told me the truth." That's right. That's the reality. But
I can't say that out loud.
Well, that's what's funny is that, and then the student comes and says, "Hey, mom, dad, this person told me this." Yeah. And mom or dad are like, "I've told you that for years. What are you talking about?"
I deal with that with my 9-year-old. I mean, I tell them, it's like, "I just told you that." But mom has to say it. It can't be dad.
That's right.
They learn that from an early age. And now it's in those teenage years. Because what ages do you serve?
So we serve 11 through 19-year-olds.
Okay. So, So 11 would
really
be,
that 6th
grade to 12th
grade.
6th grade. So, okay, 6th and 12th grade. Which is, again, talking about there's a great need in our community. Where all are you guys ministering in different places, in different areas?
Yeah. So we are, like I said, we're in juvenile detention twice a week. Yep. We do a small group that's more of a secular group, and then we have a chaplaincy where we go in on Sunday mornings and we actually lead a Bible study with the students. Yeah. And then we have our, teen centers downtown, and it's kind of unique. So, we're doing more than just the relational, like we provide clothes, we do food. Wow. We meet felt needs as much as we do the social needs, as much as we do in the relationships. And then also obviously at schools. So we're in the schools, and it allows us the opportunity to just speak in kids' life, where they stand, where they're at. I mean, schools, that's the one place where students spend the most time throughout the year. If that makes sense. Either that or
which makes the job of a teacher, the role of a teacher, obviously so important. Yes. And it's just integral.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And it's just interesting, too, how our teachers, our system kind of works against teachers in the sense that they've got them for an hour and then they move on to the next class, Yeah. And so it takes a little more time to invest in those kids. And so we get to see a lot of kids come out of that, and we begin walking alongside of them and tutoring and just meeting their needs, doing Bible studies together, small groups. Yeah. And so we've got a lot of different things that we do. But the biggest things that we have needs for, one obviously is prayer support. Yeah. We need people praying for our students. And that goes through different things. We have different prayer teams, where we send out prayer requests and text a lot of times. just saying, hey, can you pray for Adam or Eve? Oftentimes I renamed, we renamed them for privacy's sake.
Sure, yeah.
But, can you pray for this student who's going through this experience? Can you pray for, what's going on in their life? And so that's one way. We obviously always need volunteers and advocates to speak in, come alongside and work with students and really befriend them. I mean, it takes a lot of intentionality. It's kind of, in some ways, foreign to our culture to really come alongside of somebody and live life together with them.
Right.
And so that's
with no agenda.
huge.
No, I mean, it's just being there and present.
It is, and what our goal is, I mean, obviously our goal is for them to come into a relationship with Christ.
Yeah.
But, oftentimes it takes a lot more investment than that on the front end.
Yeah.
The reality is we have kids, we interact with kids who never come to know Christ.
Yeah.
But they do know who they can call.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
In those bad or tough situations. And we see many come back and we get to hear great stories. In fact, I met a police officer a couple months ago that was just telling me, it was like, y'all don't understand. Youth for Christ is why I'm a police officer today, because if y'all hadn't stood in the gap, I would have gone a different path.
Wow.
And so it's cool to hear those
That's
stories.
amazing. You have some people on staff that have kind of gone through Youth for Christ program. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. We actually have 2 on staff that are kids, and we actually love to bring kids onto our staff, if that makes sense, because they know the ministry and they've been through it. And so, but Drew and Abraham specifically are
met
the
Drew.
2.
Yep.
Yeah, you met Drew.
Yep.
And brother, sister, and it's interesting how they got involved. They always tell their story. They actually came for food during the summer one summer, but just because mom was working and they needed something, you know what I mean? And so they came just to kind of hang out, and we got to see them not only hang out, obviously, but we got to know them. And our executive director, Carl, got in a personal relationship with them, and he was sort of their small group leader, their mentor, to come alongside of them. And they accepted Christ and have been following him, and in many ways. So, and it's just really cool to watch their stories.
That's really neat.
And how they can turn around and impact kids that are in the same situation they were.
Yeah. So as a church, and I've shared with you, like we have a passion and a heart to get involved in, especially mentoring students. What does it look like for church to get involved? You touched on that a little bit, volunteers and what that looks like, but
prayer people, volunteers, also, donors. The reality is we are attempting to get into East. We've got the relationships built. And one of the things holding us back is the financial side, because we have to invest into people to come along and not only walk alongside students, but there's a lot of there's a lot of stuff
behind
involved
the scenes
with volunteers
and happen together.
And just training them and encouraging our adults and following up with them and just making sure everything is done well.
Yeah. And that's to have a presence here in Morningside.
Yeah.
Right. Because there's, from what I understand, there's a little bit of presence here in Morningside, but you guys have bigger dreams and hopes of what we can do.
We do. In fact, we want at least one full-time, if not more, staff at each school in order to just be available to that school and to meet the needs of the school and the students at the same time. And so it's just amazing how God opens doors.
Yeah. What are some of the things that surprised you about this position going in? So you've been in the church organization world as a pastor, and now in this world, what surprised you the most?
Well, I guess one of the things that surprises me the most is the sacrifice that it takes, not only within church life, but within nonprofit life, if that makes sense. Yeah. And so there's sort of a difference there in many ways. Right. And so the funding idea and all that stuff, ministry takes finances behind it, And so that's been one surprise to me. The other surprise to me, I guess, is how often kids are reaching out to us. I know it, but the reality is there's so many kids in our community that really just need somebody to come alongside them and say, hey, look, this is the direction to go in. Let's go together.
Yeah.
And that's just huge.
Right.
So, and ultimately, I mean, we really believe a relationship changes everything.
Yeah.
And the relationship being a relationship with Christ.
Right.
But we get the opportunity to come alongside them and also have a relationship with them and point them towards that bigger, greater.
And that's what I get excited about, is just equipping our people to be able to come alongside. And once you know, especially engaging in that relationship, what do you do now? What's that open door? How do you discern that and some of those conversations? But they happen so naturally. Yeah,
they really do once you allow them to happen. You know, as adults, we kind of get blindsided, so to speak, or blinders on and focused on stuff. But what's interesting is when we take a step back and then just come alongside a student and say, hey, what's going on? Yeah. You know, it's amazing how much conversation happens. And we train people we train our volunteers through a process to make sure that they understand. We experience a lot of different trauma care. Yeah. A lot of our kids have been through trauma in their past and background. And of course, we want adults to understand how to address those, how to take care of those needs, what things are red flags that we need more attention to or more detail to, or need to refer maybe even to some other local nonprofits.
And you do training in that?
We do. Yeah, we do a lot of training. So.
Yeah. And what does that look like usually? That's kind of coming out to your main building and talking through some of that?
Yeah. We do training in a number of different avenues. One is there at the main building. Most of our onboarding, which is that first process you go through in order to become a volunteer, it includes background checks and some safety things, and just generally some rules, engagement rules, interaction rules that make sure that we're all on good footing with everybody involved, if that makes sense. And so then we go through some trauma training. We also have video training, and every year we have at least 2 trainings a year for our volunteers that cover a variety of different issues. But the reality is we're able to make those trainings specifically related to what we see in our kids, if that makes sense. And so it's not just a general training. It's hey, Johnny, these kids need this. So we need to everybody needs to know really how to respond, how to react, and what to do. And
it's really good because as you alluded to earlier, I mean, as adults, we can put a lot of pressure on ourselves, and especially with some of those, what can be simple when you look at it, say it's a relationship, you're connecting with somebody, you're being present in that time, but we put so much pressure on ourselves. And
and what's funny is once we relax and really, I guess, share who we really are, if that makes sense. I was sitting with a group yesterday, and I just told them the story about when I was in middle school, where I had a best friend that went the wrong direction, and I tried to step in and it blew up. Right. Yeah. And so, but every single one of them around that circle could relate because they've all been in those situations before. Sure. And so just by me being honest and telling story, and what's funny is the story didn't necessarily look good upon me. Oh, you know what I mean? So it was something that I don't normally tell everybody in the world, but it's like, hey, I've got to open up because in order for students to open up, they just need to know that you're willing to open up, and really experience life together, not just look good,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of the vulnerability that you have to be able to show and display in order for somebody else to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you've got the City Life location, one City Life location. Correct. There. More aspirations and dreams to open up more City Life locations?
Yes, we actually do. And so throughout our community, we have lots of opportunity for that. Yeah. What we find is that one City Life location is great, but really about a half mile around it is the biggest distance. Our kids after school don't always have transportation type of thing. And so they may be walking from home to our City Life building. And so we hope to, in the future, to spread those out throughout our community and really get our City Life centers closer to our kids. Right. And so,
Yeah, I'm sure that's a big part of that. I mean, when you're talking 6th grade, and again, you're only bound to what the parents can do for transportation wise, but if they're able to walk to that, which you have, how many students do you see go through your City Life and at that hub there?
Well, we've had interaction with about 150 students
Okay.
over the last year.
Wow.
At that center. And so
Yeah.
that can range, I mean, anywhere from 25 a night to 70 or 80 nights.
Sure.
You know? And so you never really know. And
Yep.
and we do our best. Like
How do you do food that way?
Well, actually,
that's the
it's
challenge.
It's really kind of cool how we do it.
Yeah.
We cook for sort of those bigger level numbers.
Yeah.
And then if we have stuff left over, they go home with the kids in order to feed little brothers and sisters,
Okay.
mom and dad,
Oh,
those
yeah.
type of things. And so sort of our food becomes an extension even more
Oh, that's cool.
into the community.
Yeah,
So,
that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like I said, when I saw the city life, I mean, that's just it looks like a really fun atmosphere too.
Yeah.
And for students to hang out and adults, I mean, it's a good atmosphere. Yeah.
It is.
What are some of the things we can be praying for just for you guys and what you're kind of going through in the next seasons?
Yeah. Continue to open doors, obviously, throughout our community. Specifically, you know, we have a lot of kids that come from a tough spot.
Yeah.
And so as we minister and as we talk to them and come alongside of them, an openness, not only on our part, but their part,
Yeah.
that continues, if that
Sure.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And then funding for our expansion.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a lot of needs within our community, and we want to see Christ make a big impact across our entire community. And so, and that's part of it.
That's great. Well, you guys are on our benevolence and mission list, and we're just excited about that and to be able to partner in that financially, but really want to partner in prayerfully and volunteer. And so I'm just excited about that relationship that we have here. But thank you for chatting about this. We'll
welcome.
do this again sometime.
Yeah,
but,
that'd be great.
Yeah, but this is good. And thank you for listening. If you want to find out any more information about Youth for Christ, we'll plug in a link and you can check out their website. Otherwise, to check out other episodes, go to our website, our Facebook, and you can look at everything that we've done up until this point. God bless you.